Welcome back to another trader video. In this episode, we are going to be looking at creating your own tasks. Yeah, and basically that's what it is. So let's hop in. Firstly, we are going to take a look at the tasks mod and see what functions are provided to make the creation of tasks a little more easy, a little more straightforward, and most importantly, save you a lot of typing. So there's two main tasks. There is tasks add XP, and there's tasks only add XP. And they both do pretty much exactly what it sounds like. So add XP adds XP, and only add XP only adds XP. Great description, right? Makes it crystal clear. I could just end the video right here. JK. Let's take a look at what these actually do. So when you add XP, you need the position of the node itself, the puncher, that would be the player that punched it, and swap to is the name of the node that the current node is going to change into once the XP is added, if the XP is successfully added. So first thing that happens is we check to make sure the player is not a ghost, just by getting the player attributes and then getting the string. Actually, shouldn't that be player? Oh, it is player get meta puncher. Okay, I don't know why I have it called attributes here. It should just be whatever. It doesn't matter. It does the same thing. So checks if they are ghosts. So when you die in the game, you get some meta set on your player saying that you're a ghost. So if you're not a ghost, here, if ghost equals false, you're not a ghost, then we do all of this. We get the meta of the node. We see how long the timer is. That gets set up when you create the node, which we'll look at a little later. The XP also is set in the same place. And then we check what item the player is punching with. And essentially all we're doing is making sure that they're not holding the creative tool breaking. That's the hammer that you use to break nodes. Because this is in a on punch callback. And if that check wasn't in here, when you try breaking the node with the hammer, it actually wouldn't let you break it because it would swap the node instead. So that's why that's there. So yeah, it checks to make sure that they're not holding the hammer to break it. And then it checks what map you're on, which it does with a simple table check of lobby.game and then the player name. And then it also checks who the trader is. So that's another table check using the map ID that we just got. Swaps the node, that's where the swap to comes in place. Keeps rotation, that's what the param2 equals node.param2 bit does here. Sets the form spec to nothing, which I'm not 100% sure why. It must have been needed, but I don't remember why that was needed. And then it starts the timer. The timer is pulled from the node's metadata. Then we check if the map ID is not lobby, which if you're playing the game, you won't be in the lobby. And we make sure that you're not the trader. And then we actually add the XP, which happens in these couple lines here. And then we check the XP level currently to make sure that you didn't just earn enough XP to win, which we'll look at in like 20 seconds. If you are the trader, it just does you're the trader, you can't do tasks. And if you are in the lobby, it gives you 1 XP for yourself. In the future, you will be able to use this XP to buy like skins and perks and stuff, but it's not going to actually help you at all. It's just decorative stuff. Okay, so tasks check XP takes a map ID and the needed XP. Needed XP comes from game data. It doesn't really matter too much where that comes from. Just know that's what it does. You never should have to touch that. But all that's doing is checking the current XP level and seeing if it is below 0. And if it is, the team wins. So the way XP works, say a level needs 20 XP. Every time you earn an XP, it subtracts from that 20. So if there's something that gives 5 XP, somebody does it, you now need 15 XP, etc., till it's 0. Once it's 0, the team wins. So add XP is going to also swap the node for you. So you don't have to manually deal with swapping the node. It'll restart the timer for you. Pretty much takes care of everything for you. This is best suited for nodes where you're just punching it to complete the task. So maybe a waste basket that has some garbage next to it. And that would be the non-completed task. And you would punch it, and that would pick the trash up, put it in the waste basket. Tasks completed. you earned your XP, you're just punching it. That's all it is. There's no interface that you're dealing with. You're not getting a new part. You're not fixing anything. You're not typing in a code. You're literally just punching the node or right-clicking on it. Task only add XP works much the same, but all this one does, as the comment says here, is it only adds XP. So you'll see it's quite a bit shorter. Checks to make sure you're not a ghost. Checks if you're on the lobby or not. If you're not in the lobby, then it checks what map you are on to figure out where the XP goes, and then it adds how much ever XP that's defined when the function is called. Again, it checks XP as well to know if completing that should make the team win. If you're the trader, you get the same message. You can do tasks, you don't earn points. If you're in the lobby, again, it'll give you 1 XP. Any task completed in the lobby gives you 1 XP, no matter what. You can't get extra XP in the lobby. Winning currently gives 25 XP, so it's obviously a lot faster to earn XP by winning games than by just hanging out in the lobby doing tasks, but you can do that too. So those are the two methods, the two functions for adding XP. And then we have some stuff for setup here. So we have tasks as integer. So if you have a node that you're setting up that is using whatever, but it's only allowing for an integer input, you would just use this task or this function to make sure that it's valid input. So you don't have to type this out every single time. And then valid inputs, this is if you're using the configuration form spec here. So this configuration form spec just tells you add data in this format: XP, timer duration, task name. When you hit the submit button, this function will get called. You have to code that yourself, and it just checks to make sure that the XP and the timer, your first two variables here, are valid integers. And if they are, it lets you continue. If they're not, there'll be a chat message saying, hey, you can't do that, you idiot. Read the instructions, follow the instructions. It actually doesn't say that, but if you wanted to put your own task in and have it say that, you totally could. So now let's take a look at the example. So this is the simple basic punch the node to complete the task to earn the XP. So there's going to be 3 nodes here. Most tasks that exist so far have 3 nodes. There is a setup node. This is the node you place from inventory and you set it up. So when you place this node, it uses that task form spec configuration that we were just looking at right over here. So you don't have to create that form spec every single time, which, saves some work. And then when you click the save button, it's making sure there's valid inputs. So again, that function I was just talking about, it checks to make sure that the timer duration and the XP are numbers. And then it just ignores the last option for the info text. That can be anything you want, including a space. So just make sure that that information is valid. And if it is valid, it swaps the node to example _1 so that you would have to code yourself because that's whatever node it's changing to. And if it's not valid, it just tells you double check your formatting, please. So you know, hey, I can't save it because something's wrong with my formatting. And then you just have to re-enter the data. Example 1, this is the inactive node. So this is sitting there waiting for it to break, pretty much. Or if we use the trash bin example, this is the trash bin when there's no trash around it. It's just there chilling, but you can't punch it or interact with it to earn any XP. So this is just your basic node. We have an on timer callback, which will swap the node to the broken version. So that's the _1 in this case, but it could be anything. And then we have an on punch. On punch in this specific case, and you don't have to code this if you don't want to, but in this specific case, when the node is inactive, so the trash bin with no trash around it, if somebody comes along and punches it, that restarts the timer at twice the duration that was set in the configuration to set it up. So the trader can go around and every task that's just a simple punch or right click that they happen upon, they can punch or right click on, and that'll make it take twice as long for the teammates, or the team members, I guess they're the opponents of the trader, to be able to earn XP and defeat the trader that way. So that's a nice little thing, I thought, but you don't have to put that onto your tasks if you don't want to. That is completely your call. And then we have register node. This is the one that's waiting for somebody to complete the task. So here we just have on punch tasks at XP. The position, well, we get the position from itself. Node comes from itself. Punch already comes from itself. All we have to actually put in on the function here is what node we're changing to. So when somebody completes this task, it changes back to the inactive version, which is example_0. You can use whatever naming scheme you want. It doesn't matter. Most of the stuff between these is honestly pretty much copy and paste for the node registration. Description, that changes. The tiles and the groups stay the same. In this specific, in the example node, light source does change. So in the setup, it's at level 2, and when it's working, it's at level 14, and when it's broken, it's at level 2 as well. It's just a goofy light with some texture on it. It's not really meant to be used in the game. It's just an example to show how it works. So that's that. It's pretty basic. Honestly, this could all be, and at some point I might do this, could be put down into a single function. So we would just have a register, I don't know, basic task or something, and you would just put in description, your tiles, and then it would automatically register the 3 nodes because the differences between them are pretty minimal. They all drop example setup because if you dropped either of these 2 versions and then somebody placed it in the world, it doesn't have any of that metadata stored, so it would crash the server. So that's why we don't want that happening. But the groups on pretty much everything is either breakable or not in creative inventory or both. Well, everything should be breakable. If it's not breakable, we have issues because you can't get rid of it then. And then your on timer and on punch within these, like these 2, that could just be registered in bulk. But whatever. Now we go to the one that doesn't use the simple method. It uses the more complicated. It's not really more complicated. It gives you more freedom, honestly, but on the trade-off of having to write more code. So your decision. They both do different things, so use it how you will. So this is going to be using the only at XP. This is one of the engines. There are 3 nodes for this as well. We have the setup, we have the working engine, and we have the broken engine. So we have 3 different form specs. The setup is only looking for XP. So if we scroll through here on construct, it sets up the unconfigured arc reactor, does the configuration form spec on receive field. So when we click the save button, first it checks to make sure that there's actually data there. And then if there is data, it checks to make sure it's a valid integer, which we have tasks as integer, which I don't remember if I mentioned. Not there. Here we go. Literally, it just takes an input and checks if that input is a number, and then does math floor on the number and checks if it's the same number. So if you had like 3.1, well, that is a valid number, but we don't take decimal points in the XP because it gets messy, so we don't allow it. So we do a math floor, which would change 3.2 to 3. And then does 3 equal 3.2? Well, no, it doesn't. So we wouldn't be returning true, so we would be returning false instead. Or nil, actually, I think. Either way, it doesn't matter because it wouldn't be true, so none of this would operate, and we would get a message saying integers only, please. If it is true, where it's a valid input for the number, we get the, in this specific case, you repair it by putting a craft item into an inventory slot. So we're just setting up some inventory slots here, setting up the info text to arc reactor and changing the form spec to the good version, which is basically just saying it's functioning properly. And then we swap the node to the other version, keeping the rotation the same by using the param2 equals node.param2. So that's your setup. The node itself is just the mesh, it's all basic normal stuff, nothing special there. On right click, so on these specific ones, and you don't necessarily have to code it this way, you could throw a timer in on the setup node, so when the setup is done, a timer automatically starts. I just opted not to on this, but when you right click on the engine, it'll pull up the form spec saying it's functioning properly, but it will also start a timer. In this case, it just does a random number between 60 and 300, so between 1 and 5 minutes. Start the timer. When that timer fires, it swaps the node to the off version, again, saving the rotation, and sets the string to the bad form spec. So the form spec good is reactor's permanent peak efficiency, and the bad one is looks like something broke, get a new part from the storage locker. There's a button, says grab a part, request form. You click the button and it does some stuff, which we will look at right now. So on receive fields, so the button's called gimme because I felt creative when I set this code up. We get the player inventory. We check if the player has 4 gears. If they don't, we give them a gear. If they do, we say you have too many of these. So the first time you run it, you have 0 gears, so you can get 1. You do it again, now you have 1 gear. You do it again, you have 2. You do it again, you have 3. You do it again, you would have 4 currently. It says you have 4, so we'll let you do it. Now, this maybe should be a count is less than or equal to 4, because theoretically, if there were some strange way for you to get 5 of these, then you could get your whole inventory filled of 32. But you're not allowed to drop the items, so I don't know how it would be possible to get that. I guess if you already had 4 and there was one sitting in a parts request machine thing, a storage locker, you could get a 5th. Ooh, yeah, I suppose you could. I should probably change that. But as long as you don't have 4, it gives you another one. And once you do have 4, it says you have too many. So that's how that works. Allow metadata inventory put. So this one, because it has an inventory slot, we only want to allow the correct item in there. So, and just a simple, whatever the item is, in this case, tasks gear, we say if that's what it is, we can put 1 item in. If it's not that, you can't put any in. And then on metadata inventory put, so once you have successfully put something in that is a valid input, so your tasks gear, it'll do all this stuff. So it gets the name of the player, it gets the meta of the node, gets the XP from the meta. The reason it has or 1 here is there could be some nodes existing in the world that weren't properly set up because when it was first coded, there weren't the checks. So if somebody put in value in for XP that wasn't actually a number, this will fail. So it'll just fall back to 1 instead of crashing the server, which, you know, a lot less annoying. We just get the inventory here. We do that so we can eliminate it and set it to nothing. We get the timer, or we get a random number for the timer. Again, 60 to 300 seconds. You can't configure this in game. It's just that's what this node is. You don't have to make your nodes this way. You could make that a configurable option if you wanted. It's completely up to you. We set the inventory to nothing, so when it re-breaks, it doesn't still have the repair part needed in it. We swap the node to the working version rather. Again, keeping rotation with this. We set the string to the good version. We only add XP, so here we're using the XP that we got from the metadata and the player name because we need the player name to find out which level they're on, to find out which XP amount we should be modifying. And then we start the timer again with this random number between 60 and 300. So the tasks only add XP. You could put behind anything you want. So we could do something, and I'm just going to steal this from the example here. We could take this on punch, and we could say, well, we want it that you can, I don't know what we're, okay, so we'll go back to the trash example. So there's some garbage around the garbage bin that we want people to clean up, right? So we do an on punch. Well, we wouldn't have the timer here, so we can ignore all of this. But we would have XP, so whatever. Oh, I wanted to get rid of that as well. Okay, so we would have our XP here, right? This is how I do 95% of my code, is just copy and paste, by the way, just for the record. Okay, but actually before we do that, we would want to do this. We would want to get the wielded item that the player is holding, which I have the code required for that right here. So we would just take this, we would throw that right here. So we're getting the puncher. The on punch would also have to have that information being passed to it, which that's not what I want. why do I have an actual on punch that passes that value? Here we go. It's kind of important that you have all the data you need for the function, otherwise it won't work. So here we go. We now have a puncher, so we can get the wheeled, so then we can get the wheeled item name, and then we can do if wheeled item equals, so there's a trash bin, right? So you have to be holding a broom. Where do you get the broom from? I don't really know. You would have to make another node that has brooms that you can pick up a broom so you can sweep up the garbage, I guess. So then if you're holding the broom, you only add your XP. So then because we're only adding the XP, we need to manually swap the node to the, the trash bin that doesn't have garbage lying around it, right? And then maybe we want to do something to the broom. So we could, I don't know what the specific code would be, but if the broom was a tool, we could put some wear on it, or if it's not a tool, we can manually put wear on it. I think we would have to manually put wear on it either way, but we could put wear on the broom, so maybe the broom can only be used 10 times before you have to go pick up another one, and you could make wherever you get the broom from not let you get a broom if you already have a broom in your inventory, so you'd have to, break the broom you have by using it so much because you're sweeping so hard. It's kind of a weird example, but it's an example, okay? Just get those creative juices flowing. So we would do whatever all we need to do here, and then we would, just end it out. And we would be I don't know why there we go. And we have to manually swap the node back, because otherwise if you don't manually swap the node back, you could literally just stand here holding your broom and just punch it till your broom broke and be earning XP every time, and then go get a new broom, come right back, and just keep doing that. Because, well, only add XP does what the name says. It only adds XP. It doesn't change the node. It doesn't do anything else. And, I mean, you can do anything. You could make it the broom only work once, so you use the broom and then the broom goes away. Or you could make it play a sound. Pretty much if you want to do anything, you can. You just have to code it in. And only add XP is really nice for that, because all it does is adds the XP. So you have control over swapping the node. Maybe the node doesn't swap at first. Maybe you want to set a timer, so after 10 seconds the node will swap. You could do that too using only add XP. If you use the add XP, swap 2 is built right in, so it'll swap instantly. So if you want to, for whatever reason, make a delay, you can do that using the only add XP. And some of this could really be combined down, like my example one here. I could probably write a function that registers all of these, so you have to enter a lot less code, but that's not done yet. So, and maybe will never be. I don't know. That's possibilities. You can pretty much do whatever you want. Honestly, if you really wanted, you could look at the task add XP here and see how the actual adding is happening, which is essentially in this chunk right here. And you could use this code itself, but you do have to do all of these other checks. So at that point, it would probably make more sense to make a new function and throw it in the functions file here, and it would be, whatever thing you're trying to do that these two functions don't cover, which they should cover like 99% of everything. I can't think of anything that this wouldn't cover for. But if there is something you're trying to do and neither of these two functions work, you can add another function. There's a pretty good chance I will approve a pull request that adds another function, assuming you already have a task that requires that function, where I can see that, yes, this is actually needed, and not, well, you should just use one of the already existing functions and just do something else in the code for the task you're adding. But that's pretty much it, how to add tasks to the game. Next week we'll probably be looking at some of the new nodes, because I've added a bunch of new nodes since the last video where I talked about the new nodes. So I will see you then. And yeah, if you wanna join the Sweaver and fool around and try to crash it and stuff, info's down in the video description, and code's all public. So if you want to either look at the code and laugh at it because it's so terrible, or if you want to borrow some of it for your own mods or whatever, feel free. It's all available. It's all linked, all on the website. Pretty easy to find. It's gonna wrap it up. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.